I just want to get your word, because this homegrown program, the school feeding program, is supposed to plunge children out of poverty, but then we still have increasing numbers of children that are out of school. We still have increasing. Your program is supposed to plunge children out of school children, but then we still have increasing numbers. So how would you actually say that your program has affected the child that is not going to school?
I wish the population was constant. If the population door has been closed and it's a school feeding program, deal with this number of children who are out of school now, by now I would have given you a very, very low number.
In the words of Muhammad Ali, a professional boxer, he once said, "Wars of nations are fought to change maps, but the wars of poverty are fought to map change." Okay, so let's see what our next quote is all about. This one is from Nelson Mandela, former president of South Africa. He once said, "Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of injustice. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life." All right, our third quote is from Mother Teresa, a missionary and saint. She once said, "We think sometimes that poverty is only being hungry, naked, and homeless. The poverty of being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for is the greatest poverty. We must start in our own homes to remedy this kind of poverty." Absolutely spot on. Now let's see what or who or what exactly is all of these quotes related to. Warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. No fewer than 133 million Nigerians, representing 63% of the population, are currently living in multi-dimensional poverty, the National Bureau of Statistics, as NBS, disclosed. Of the total, 105.98 million poor Nigerians are located in rural areas, compared to 16.97 million in the urban areas. You recall that in August 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari reiterated his commitment to empower an additional 100 million people to escape extreme poverty by 2030. Now, this implied that, on average, 10 million people must be lifted out of poverty each year starting in 2020. However, with the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on livelihoods and unemployment, the challenge was more evident, according to the Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index 2022 survey, which was released a few days ago by the statistical agency. There are high deprivations in sanitation, time of healthcare, food insecurity, and housing. Now, the report stated that over half of the 200 million population who are actually multidimensionally poor, they cook with dung, wood, or charcoal rather than clean and renewable energy. Now, according to that report, the multidimensional poverty is higher in rural areas where 72% of the people are poor compared to 42% in the urban areas. The report also pointed out that the North accounted for 65% or 86 million poor Nigerians, while 35% or about 47 million poor Nigerians who are living in poverty actually reside in the South. Now, the incidence of multidimensional poverty was high in Sokoto State, which accounted for 96% of poor Nigerians, and the lowest incidence of 27% was recorded in Ondo State. In terms of proportion of poverty and its intensity, the poorest state included Sokoto State, Bayelsa, Jigawa, Kebbi State, Gombe State, and Yobe. Now, the report, among other things, said that 2/3 of children aged 0 to 17 are poor and accounted for 65% compared to 58.7% of adults. Other than that, This gives rise to the sobering reality that over half of all poor people are children. Can you beat that? Now, it also noted that 29% of all school-age children are not attending school, while 94% of all out-of-school children are poor. That is something to worry about. Now, joining us to discuss these issues and more is Dr. Umar Bindir. He is the National Coordinator, National Social Investment Program, NSIP, and is actually taken over by the federal, or that is actually recorded by the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Investment Program. Dr. Umar Bindir will actually be in the right position to answer all of these questions with regards to the Multidimensional Poverty Index 2022. I will see you shortly. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we'll go straight to our conversation for today. Our guest on the show today is Dr. Umar Bindir. He is the National Coordinator, the National Social Investment Program, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Investment. It's great to have you again on the show, sir.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure being in this complex.
Likewise. Yeah. All right, now let's go straight to the chart for today. Now, looking back at your activities at the National Social Investment Program, the farmer money, the trader money, the market money, conditional cash transfers, and the school feeding program, how far will you appraise your activities if you are asked to judge or score yourself from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest?
Well, I mean, if I'm asked to judge myself, I will just give myself a 10 and relax. But in natural environments, nobody gets a 10. You know, so the National Social Investment Program is the core poverty alleviation intervention of the federal government. Now, poverty is a very serious issue in our country, and it is everywhere. So when you look at the strategic nature of the program, first it says, look for young people, particularly, you know, young ladies, empower them with skills, give them information, trigger their excitement so that they can be able to establish their own businesses or provide good services that are gainful and then gradually lift themselves out of poverty. That's the basis of the Empower. Empower with their 3 levels: graduates, non-graduates, but post-secondary school, and then less than secondary school, meaning primary school graduates, primary school dropouts, and then non-educated. All these levels, over the last few years, we are proud to actually tell Nigerians that in the database of the graduate and non-graduate, we have an approximately 10 million young people that have expressed their interest to participate. Out of that, we have screened and selected 1.5 million. And these people have been treated well. The graduates are on a 30,000 naira stipend per month. The non-graduates are on a 10,000 naira stipend per month. The graduates are between 1 to 2 years of attachment, while the non-graduates has a 9-month training and attachment. Many of them have actually taken the opportunity and have established their businesses and also employed 1 or 2. So that 1.5 million has actually extended to something like 3 to 4 million people in active service and are gradually getting out of the challenges of poverty. The second level is the school feeding program, like you mentioned. Out-of-school children is a serious problem in our country. The birth rate is very high. Ruralness is very high. School infrastructure is very weak. Teachers are not that many. Therefore, the school feeding program, since we started, we can boast between 9, 10 to 11 million children being fed in Nigeria in public primary schools between the classes 1 to 3. And because of the food going there, it has served as a...
Are they your only target from primary 1 to 3?
Oh, yes, that's the target. That is the basic literacy level where children of the poor at least should know how to read and write. that is the beginning of your excitement to get out of poverty. So the nutritious meals are flowing. We have learned a lot. And I can tell you the meals in the schools have served to attract a lot of children. We're seeing literally an explosion of children coming to school. And that is one of the objectives. So again, that on a scale of 0 to 10, maybe you can score it 7 or so. Then you switch over to the conditional cash transfer. This conditional cash transfer is targeting households, not individuals. And it is actually a strategy where, first of all, you have a database of what we call as the National Social Register. For the first time in the history of this country, that we now have a database of the poor and vulnerable people all over Nigeria. And it is continuing. We have now between 12 to 13 million households documented, meaning this house is very, very poor and vulnerable. Either the man has died, left a widow, so many children out of school, the lady is disabled, and so on and so forth. Out of these 12 or so million households, accounting to between 40 to 50 million individuals, we have mined 2 million households, and each of these households is getting 5,000 naira per month, and it will be for a period of 2 years. I'm happy to report that this is stable now. Every household, the caregiver is getting that 5,000 per month through a bank account. So banking them alone is a progress. Secondly, many have actually realized that this 5,000 naira a month, some people may think is very, very small, but these are the people who are buying groundnuts to extract oil out of it and then sell some and eat some. These are some people who will buy 2 small chickens, leave them in the house so that they grow and they're laying eggs, they have access. So we've seen a totally new change in many of the poor and vulnerable households. And then the final one is the GEEP, which you mentioned, the farmer money, the trader money, the market money. This is massive. This is these traders that you see in the market, selling aleho, bitter leaf, smoked fish, maggi, and so on and so forth. Taking 50,000 naira, some people might think it's not a very big credit, but I can tell you it boosts their daily performance to the extent that their purchasing power to buy materials to sell in the market, that is triggering a very functional community development commercially, is actually changing Nigeria totally. Finally, you see, before I gauge it finally, all this money, whether it's earned power, whether it's school feeding, whether it's conditional cash transfer, or the GEEP, all the money actually enters the economy at the bottom. When the earned power beneficiary gets their stipend, they are entering Kekenapep. They are buying credit, community commercial boosting. When the school feeding cook gets the pay, straight to the market to go and buy the oil, the eggs and so on, straight community development. When the conditional cash transfer money enters the account of the women or the caregiver, straight to the market. When the GEEP, the market women, get their 50,000 naira straight to the market. This is what is stabilizing what people think now in Nigeria, that, oh, we are gaining peaceful and so on and so forth. It is NSIP injection that is actually gingering the communities to be financially stable. So ranking this or rating this honestly and honestly, it's not easy, it's difficult, it has challenges. You have to bend backwards to implement this. The minister is bending backward, the permanent secretary is bending back. All of us are bending backwards. On a scale of 0 to 10, I personally will give it a 7.8.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have a lot of, you made a lot of points. We are going to pick out a lot of things out of what you said. But now you talked about the GEEP. With the farmer money, the trader money, the market money, it's supposed to be a loan, right?
Yes, yes.
So how do you track and then be sure that, because some people have the mentality that it is not our national cake, let's go have a bite from it. How do you return back?
You see, this credit is a very, very unique and innovative credit. Unique and innovative because it is based on the fact that, first, it has no interest rate. Bankers don't know this. How do you run it? This is government, for example. Poverty is our problem. So the president said, go there and give them no interest rate. If you give a woman 50,000 naira, expect only 50,000 naira back from her. So no increase. So that is exciting to people who are taking it. Secondly, there's no collateral. We don't say register your house or your chairs or your car or your bicycle or whatever, so that if you don't pay, we come and catch you. No. President said, these are poor people anyway. Don't give them collateral. So use your brains to see, how do you get this money out? The secret of getting the money back from all these informal to formalized entrepreneurship is success. When we give you money, we follow you, we track you, we help you, we give you information, we teach you best practices for you to succeed, because if you don't succeed, you will not pay. So there are people who think, oh, I've taken 50,000, which is meager, you know. Taken 50,000 is my share of the cake. No. So first of all, we make sure that you are actually doing something. Any woman that is actually extracting oil out of granules, with or without your loan, she will extract oil out of granules and be selling the kuli and the oil, or the palm oil, or whatever. By injecting 50,000 naira, you just boost it. That is why the market money is totally dedicated to women, you know, and we have seen successes there. The trader money, all these young people that you see hawking around, selling sugarcane, tiger nuts, and so on and so forth, even without you, they're already doing it in their wheelbarrows anyway, selling the ice cream and so on. And they say, hey, you are now selling this small one. You're only taking maybe half of it per day. You can take it twice. So here is a loan of 50,000 naira. The guy gets excited. So how we track this is we get them documented. We know where they are. We follow them with our monitoring structures. We ensure that if they are doing something wrong, we interview them. We say, no, you can do it better. And we're seeing an explosion again of basic informal entrepreneurship gradually getting formal. And mark you, we never give these loans in the hands like that, cash. It is through a bank account. You will even have a card, meaning your own formal consideration of being financially inclusive has now raised up. You now will feel that I have an account. We teach you how to save. I have my card. You can go to POS and take 1,000 naira or 2,000 naira. So this culture of commercial inclusivity is actually the guarantee to the repayment, and we are seeing the dividends of this strategy.
Okay, so Dr. Umar, you talked about giving cash transfers to household poor people.
Yeah.
How did you determine a poor person?
Now, we have an office called NASCO, National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office. And every state of the Federation, the 36 states and FCT, has an office of that NASCO. Each of these offices, they go to the rural areas and form committees, the chief of the community, the women leader, the youth leader, and so on. It is these communities that actually are trained on the basis of between 100 to 200 indices. Is there a child that is not schooling in that house? Do they have disability? What is the quality of their house? What kind of food do they eat? And so on and so forth. It is the community that documents the houses that are poor and vulnerable within their community. And we glean the data and put it into the social register. So nobody from Abuja goes to say, oh, that man is poor, put there. Oh, that's my uncle, put the list. No, it's a natural evolution of data for the first time in the history of this country that we're doing this. So, and it's in every state, there's no piloting or selecting spots, no. Everywhere, from all the nearly 9,000 wards in this country, or in all the 774 local government areas, in all the 36 states in FCT, this is happening. These offices are very, very well capacitated. They have their digital means. We're using satellite imagery to even actually see poor houses from non-poor houses, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of deployment of technology to make sure that you actually see the Google mapping, and you can be able to see all the tracks and all these, and then validate the data. So poor and vulnerable households in the National Social Register is original. There is no fraud there. And it is this pool of data that tells you if you are succeeding or not. Every 2 years, we review this data. And the people who are able to jump out of poverty, jump out of these houses, will not be documented next time you do the review. There may be some who have now had the shocks of COVID or flooding. They might have entered the register. They will enter. But the size of that register actually tells you your level of poverty. And our hope is that with all the interventions in the local government, in the state, the federal, philanthropists, NGOs, that bag of the social register will start to shrink. And that is what the president wants to see. Hopefully. When he said, 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years.
We're going to hit on that point that you just made lastly.
Yeah.
Now, the NSIP is directly and indirectly imparting the lives of poor Nigerians through its 4 cluster programs. That's the Empower, the Government Enterprise, and that's the GEEP, the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, and the Conditional Cash Transfer Program. Now, I'm going to ask you again, has it actually been worth the journey? In all sincerity, is this policy a policy that even a new government can actually pick up the baton and run with it, even looking at the whole 9 yards, talking about sustainability? How sustainable is this program? What happens if, talking about the school feeding program, what happens if the children, what happens to the kids if this is not sustained? Did you put all of this in check?
Well, you see, this whole thing started when His Excellency the President came into power in 2015. There was a very good research, the Office of the Vice President with the swagger and everything, very intensive research and packaging. And the NSIP was born, and the implementation started in 2016. Now, there was never Empower before. It's a fresh way of looking at poverty
But
eradication.
we have Shopee, we had UN.
Well, there were programs to do with poverty alleviation. There was FEEP during the Abacha. There was NAPEP during Buhari. There was PAP 2000 during the Obasanjo. So there were many programs, but there wasn't Empower the way it has been designed. We've used all the experiences of the other programs and then packaged this Empower. There was no school feeding program at this level in 2016. It started fresh. The conditional cash transfer, yes, there are cash transfers, but there was never National Social Register. As of 2016, it started that time. Then this strategy of the GEEP, yes, there were microcredit over here and there. There were interest rates. There were collaterals. There has never been a microcredit of this nature, of no interest. So you are fresh based on evidence that this is the way to go. And traditionally, if you are a specialist in social work and all this kind of poverty alleviation, when you start impact assessment is when you see, what have I done? Is it actually affecting people? Where am I making mistakes? How do I rejig this? It is normally 3 years. When you're consistently implementing it to the letter, you allow it to mature for 3 years, and then you come and assess, and then you allow it again. This is how it goes. So 2016 is came, 2017, 2018, it was just beginning, we're just beginning to mature, to learn the art, and then COVID hit. You remember when COVID hit, no markets, therefore market money died. No running around, the trader money also went. No schooling, the school feeding program also collapsed. Don't move around, and then also the Empower 2019, 2020. And you remember 2019 was when this ministry was created. So this ministry inherited the NSIP with the vacuum of COVID. So all the gains of the 2016, 2017, 2018, when we were just supposed to gauge it, COVID now started drinking it. So we have to sort of rejig it and be able to be strong.
So that means some people actually run away with the loans that they collected.
Well, there's almost certainly. In fact, there are more people who entered into poverty because of COVID. Because you remember, somebody who used to ride his keke napep had nothing to do with Empower or whatever. He's making his 500 naira to 1,000 naira a day, and then COVID struck, and then you closed everything down. He now has to stay at home with his wife and 2 kids. The kids are not going to school. Keke is not good. So he enters the cycle of poverty. So even if you are making progress, the now shocks has actually entered the whole thing. So what I'm trying to say is that this is not an easy journey. I'm telling you, it needs professionalism, it needs the deployment of technology, and most importantly, it needs commitment. And I can swear with my age that the Honorable Minister is very, very committed. I have worked with nearly 20 ministers from Abacha time to date. I have not seen a very, very committed, somebody who does not have a social life, no family life, only work like this woman, Hajiya Sadiya Umar, committed. Then the permanent secretaries are jumping up and down, trying to coordinate everything. Remember, there is a main ministry too. in addition to the NSRP. Then some of us in the NSRP are also pulling hair out of our head, trying to make sure that we do not shame Nigerians, we do not shame the president, and we achieve these objectives. So it has been difficult. It is difficult. And if you are in this sector, you know it's difficult. But consistency and commitment and deployment of technology makes it look easy. And I'm happy to report to you that the way the young people we use, the technology that we deploy, the commitment, I mean, we never stop. There is no way you can come to the NSRP office at 10 p.m. and you don't see us working there. Me, since I joined it, I have not gone home before 10. This is the commitment. It's not like you are paid twice, but it's because there is so much to be done and you have to do it. So, yes, for sustainability, I don't think any government will come with the kind of assets that we have created to fighting poverty, which is real, that will just throw it away and then start all over again. Even if you start all over again, you will look for us. I assure you.
Interesting.
Secondly,
right.
I am telling you the poverty is the problem of Nigeria. It's not about kidnapping. Kidnapping is caused by poverty too. Insurgency is caused by poverty too. All these killings you see is caused by poverty too. Even people who want to divide this country and say, oh, we want to cut, is poverty. I have not seen a country where this kind of absolute poverty is low. People have skills, they have jobs, they go and work, they come back home and eat dinner and still wants to go and kill people. It is this poverty. So if Nigeria knows, if the leadership in Nigeria knows what hurts it most, it is poverty. And therefore, it will invest. The country will invest to quench this poverty, in my opinion, first, before any other thing.
Now, I recall that vendors were crying out to the federal government for increment of the school feeding amount from 70 naira to 100 naira due to rising cost of things in the market, the inflation and all of that. Now, I'm going to ask you two questions. Has that change been effected? And secondly, a few months ago, at the 2-day stakeholders consultative workshop on development of a national policy for the school feeding program here in Abuja, you were quoted as saying that, I'm going to take that quote from here, you said that the NHGSFP is a key pathway for the government of Nigeria to achieve one of its own objectives to advance progress towards the Sustainability Development Goal, that's the SDG 2, on zero hunger. This aims to end hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. Now, before I ask the next question after that one, do you still maintain that stance, Dr. Umar?
Exactly. Because the school feeding, when you hear feeding, you just think of plate and spoons and food. It is not just the feeding. While the children are getting the food, somebody has to prepare the food. So you have cooks. These cooks have to be trained. There are local women in the area of the school, and therefore you are again building capacity and commercialization or economic energy within the community. But the cooks too, they are not the farmers. They are not the people who are actually producing the onions, the chicken and the eggs and so on and so forth. They have to go to the market and buy within the community. So imagine all the, the women who are keeping 2 or 3 chickens in the house, producing only 1 crate of eggs per week. And then the small scale farmers who are producing rice and cocoyam and yam and so on and so forth. These are the people who empower the cooks to actually cook. So you have an all-encompassing, the small-scale farmers are getting a bite of it, trying to organize themselves to supply. Therefore, they're beginning to become their account, to have accounts, they're selling their things. Then the cooks are organizing themselves in such a way that...
Are they still cooking at 70 naira for each
No,
hour?
100 naira we have left. The president has approved the increment from 70 to 100 naira based on inflation and reality. Already, the honorable minister has approved. We're implementing that now. So as far as I'm concerned, the school feeding program holds one major key to the achievement of the relevant sustainable development goals. Why? Because children out of school will reduce. 3, their health and mental strength will improve. 3, most of the small-scale farmers are mainstreamed into the production system so that food supply will now continue. 4, women empowerment is actually part of the major ingredient of that program. So I still maintain that, and I believe that it can only get stronger.
Now, according to the NBS, as the National Bureau of Statistics, it said no fewer than 133 million Nigerians are currently living in multi-dimensional poverty. It also reports that in terms of the proportion of poverty and its intensity, the poorest states included Sokoto, Bayelsa, Jigawa, Kebbi, Gombe, and Yobe states. And in that report, among other things, said that 2/3 of children aged 0 to 17 are poor and accounted for 65% compared to 58.7% of adults, adding that this gives rise to the sobering reality that over half of the people are children. And then they also stated that 29% of all school-age children are not attending school, while 94% of all out-of-school children are poor. Dr. Umar, I asked that question again. Do you still maintain that stance, or are these figures doctored?
No. I was there when I made a short speech on behalf of the Honorable Minister at the launch of the document. You see, multisectoral poverty means there are people who suffer multiple effects of sectors. Their food is not very good, so therefore they're eating substandard nutritional value food. So agriculture is a sector there. They are not drinking clean water, so they are prone to waterborne diseases, the water sector poverty. They don't have access to, healthcare to be able to maintain a normal health. So therefore, they have health sector and so on and so forth. Their houses are not very good, and so their housing sector. So this is the concept of the multi-sectoral poverty index. Now, this is not new to us. The National Social Register is the master of all multi-sectoral things, because we have not just 3 or 4 sectors, we have 100 to 200 indices utilized to actually generate what is a poor household. So the multi-sectoral will refine our own activities in terms of targeting, in terms of measurement, in terms of delivery of interventions. So 133 million does not mean that all Nigerians are poor or whatever. It is an index that we have to be very, very serious. Yes, it is not new to Nigerians that we have a lot of out-of-school children. Before this book was released, you remember when UNICEF released the data that Nigeria has 20 million out-of-school children. This is after, in 2020.
But your aim was of the school feeding program is actually to make children come back to school.
This is exactly now. You see how connected it is. When people don't have skills, they are poor. When they have skills and they're not applying the skills to do something gainful, they are poor. See Empower. Empower is saying you need to address this sector. Children in the homes are just running around and so on. When schooling is running, you see how school feeding catches up. Then you come to the conditional cash transfer. My mother she never went to school. She had one arm, she's disabled and so on, has many children. But this woman knew how to extract oil out of groundnuts. She knew how to fry puff-puff. You eat my mother's puff-puff, you'll come back tomorrow. So I was born by a professional technocrat who could do so many things.
Is your mom among this program, the NSIP program?
Well, she's late now, but there are many moms that I have in this program. This program, when you drop 5,000 naira to the woman who can extract oil out of groundnut, to the woman who can fry guli, to the woman who can do puff-puff, akara, pomo, and so on and so forth, you have now changed her life. That is the secret of the conditional cash transfer. For the traders, everywhere in this country you go to, every community has a market day. When you go to that market, I used to go to the markets a lot, and you see all sorts of things, from calabash, from pomo, from akara, from everything. These are the entrepreneurs of your community. You see how market money is relevant. You see how trader money is. All of us, when you are driving around, you are popping groundnuts and eating it, eating corn and so on and so forth, and they are roasted on the street with suya and so on and so. You see how trader money is relevant. Okay. You see what I mean? Okay. And so on and so forth.
Dr. Umar, we're actually due for a break. Sorry to cut in there, but before we go on that break, I just want to get your word, because this homegrown program, the school feeding program, is supposed to plunge children out of poverty, but then we still have increasing numbers of children that are out of school. We still have increasing. Your program is supposed to plunge children out of school children, but then we still have increasing numbers. So how would you actually say that your program has affected the child that is not going to school?
I wish the population was constant. If the population door has been closed and it's a school feeding program, deal with this number of children who are out of school now. By now, I would have given you a very, very low number. But the door of children is open. The population is increasing. The effect, flooding alone, will kick so many children to get out of school. The COVID has made so many children out of school. You get what I mean? The ASU strike for 7 months alone has kicked so many children out of school.
But your program is for 1 to 3, primary 1 to 3.
1 to 3. What I'm trying to say is that the inflow, you see, the dynamics of development work doesn't work arithmetically like this, where you say A minus B gives you C. No, it's dynamic. You're trying to develop an institutional maturity. An institution where the school feeding is understood with a very good policy, the cooking, training and getting the cooks is standardized, the food materials that you have is now menued up to make sure you feed the children. That is the institution you are trying to mature. The numbers will reduce. There will always be children out of school, but the numbers will reduce when the institution matures, and then you have every school being fed. All the children can have a meal also, and you can see that.
Are you seeing this policy bringing that forth?
Sorry?
Every school being fed, every school children being fed. You see this policy actually achieving that?
I think so. I think there are many state governments that are giving us that signal. Initially, they thought, "Oh no, this is not going to." They see our doggedness. They see the intention and the intense implementation. A lot of governments are even. The governors come to the office of the Honorable Minister saying, "Honorable Minister, we need more. Come and teach our teachers and our people. We want to expand this." In Kaduna, for God's sake, Erufai has expanded it from not just 1 to 3, 6, 4, 5, 6. You get what? In Kogi, they are doing, and so on and so forth. So many are actually catching up and therefore expanding it. For me, the excitement is that we're developing a program, and the program is maturing as an institutional asset for this country.
Let's go to a script break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Dr. Umar Bindir. I'll see you shortly. Don't move a muscle. Over 10 billion naira monthly.
Of course, yes.
Over 120 billion naira yearly.
Yes.
That's a large sum of money. Dr.
Of course,
Bindir.
if poverty is your problem, it's nothing.
If poverty is the problem now, but then the same federal government said that an average of 100 million people must be lifted out of poverty each year.
In 10 years.
And starting in 2020.
Yes.
So after the social investment programs where 133 million people have actually plunged into poverty, 2 years later, Dr. Umar Bindir, you want to lift 100 million people out of poverty, but we have 133 million people in poverty. How do you correlate this?
In 10 years. I mean, look, lifting somebody out of poverty multisectorally is actually possible. Possible in the sense that if really we mean business and we say that we digitize our whole communities, all the communities, and I like the INEC structure of states, local governments, ward, and then polling unit. Polling unit is the last. You don't have elected leaders there, but it actually connotes a community.
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on a lot, but then you can still join in the conversation. Our guest on the show today is Dr. Umar Bindir. He is the national coordinator at the National Social Investment Program that is organized by the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Investment Program. All right, we've actually touched on a lot before we went on that break now. So I'm going to ask you, if the federal government feeds over 10 million, because you said that this school feeding program has actually touched the lives of 9, 10 to 11 million children.
Yeah.
Now, if the federal government feeds over 10 million children via the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, why do we still have these numbers? Or is it just the federal government are they just interested in giving food for the belly, just lunch, but not interested in food security, their health. Because according to the NBS, they said that there are high deprivations in sanitation and time of healthcare, in food insecurity, and in housing. Now, the main and the final goal, is it just that meal of porridge that is served during school hours?
Well, you see, that is the multisectorality. I mean, the NSIP cannot take responsibility of the relevant poverty alleviation contribution of Ministry of Water Resources, which is to do with the sanitation and the WASH program. The NSIP cannot take over responsibility of the basic support for small-scale farmers of the Ministry of Agriculture, and so on and so forth. So, but coordination is very, very important. Coordination meaning talking to each other, sharing information, sharing skills and resources so that we can get better. In our country, we are not very good at this, but we're trying so hard through so many techniques to make sure that everything we do under the NSIP, all the other sectoral ministries are part of it, so that you know what we are doing and you can also bring something on the table. So, yes, we're feeding the numbers. The president has even approved, based on the honorable minister's request, to now expand the school feeding program by another 5 million. You know, so soon.
So that means you have over.
We can have around 15 million children being fed all over the country. You know, it's expensive, but I mean, you have to do it. Nobody will come here and do it for you. You know, a child who is 6 or 7 goes into primary school. Before you say Michael Jackson is 10 years, he will be 16. Don't educate this boy and see the problem. So it is our country. The president is very, very creative, has assigned the minister who is very, very committed, and we are also the pool of people who are now supporting their creativity. So to me, the school feeding program is an interventionist program, trying to develop an institutional maturity that if you put a meal on the table for a child, that child will be strong to absorb education. Some, based on waiting for the meal, will now be having education until the meal comes in, and others will be looking forward to the following day, because there is going to be a meal, is going to be an egg day, or is going to be a shaki day, or is going to be a fried yam day. So this is how it works. It's a mentality thing. And this is not new. In even the United States, the most developed economy on earth, there is school feeding program. India has a very broad school feeding program. In Japan, there's school feeding program. So this is not new. We are the only people who are looking at it like, as if to say, when you say it is a poverty alleviation program, people think, oh, my child is not poor, meaning I can manage. That is not the concept. The concept is school feeding program has a lot of dividends. First, the children are eating together. Second, they are eating what naturally is around the environment. Third, the women who are cooking are also getting empowered, are getting out of their primitive ways of doing things gradually. 4, because small-scale farming system is endemic in our society. You know, you don't have big farms all over the place. It is these people who are producing 2 sacks of beans, 3 sacks of rice, 2 chickens and 1 egg, and so these are the people who are empowering our system. Therefore, they too, they are factored into it. Therefore, I believe that the school feeding program is a fantastic idea, and sustaining it is a plus and is an asset for our country.
Now, taking a cue from where you just all that you stated, you talked about creativity. You said something about if you don't feed a child, if you don't educate a child, that it might get worse. Now, looking at all of this with both all of the NISIPs, both the trader money and all of that. Now, looking at all of this, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I'd like you to take them in one breath. Now, like they say, teach a man how to fish and don't give him the fish. Would you actually say that this is not giving the fish instead of teaching him how to fish? That's one on the side. And then the second is, if anyone, how much is all of this, especially the homegrown program, how much does it remove from the coffers of the federal government? And if you have to talk about accountability, transparency, if anyone has to wake you up in the middle of the night and ask you, Dr. Umar, how much do you people spend on school feeding program? How accountable? How do you track the process? Is there accountability there?
Well, you see, your first question is the teaching and fishing and so on and so on. I've heard this many, many times. You can teach me how to fish. I may decide to teach another person exactly the same skill and still sit waiting for my fish. The school feeding program is not on that platform. These are children and they need basic education in today's world. Where
I'm actually talking about the trader money, the end power and all.
There is nowhere where you are just dashing people money. The GEEP is an entrepreneurial strategy recognizing the kind of informal enterprises that we have. This is dominant in our communities. You see women selling water, selling vegetables. We are vegetable eating people and you eat your vegetable fresh every day. Don't you close your eyes and ask, where is this thing coming every day? It is coming from a garden to a woman in the market for her wife or husband to go and buy so that you can have your fresh edika inko that day. And you want to eat it every single day with your own pounded yam or pomo, amala, or whatever. Don't you ask questions like this? This is what sustains it. We realize that this is the culture of our productivity and this is the culture of our production. If you inject resources in that, you will sustain it and we will mature. Every country does this kind of, selectivity. 2, about accountability. Let me tell you, the NSRP is not a primitive program. It is a program that is using highly skilled young people and deploying technology. Every single thing that I have described to you is actually computerized. Every beneficiary of market money, trader money, or farmer money is on our computers. Today, if I just go to my car now and bring my computer here, I have connectivity and I can show you our dashboard. You will see every state, how many are trader money, market money, with their names and their gender and their age and what they're doing. This is the legacies of the NSIP. The same thing with Empower. Every young person that is actually being trained, where he is trained, what trade, who is their trainer, is actually totally digitized. This conditional cash transfer, the 2 million households, we know the location of every single house. This is the state, this is the local government, this is the ward, even this is the unit and the community. We know it, it's on our computers. And then if you talk of the school feeding program, that is the one that we do not have the list of all the children by name, but we have their numbers. But as we speak, the enumeration is going on. We've covered something like 18 or so states. Every child, we know their fingerprints, we have their pictures on our databases. So if you were to wake me up
before they can actually get the food?
No. This is as the feeding is going. When you go to your school, this is school A, so it's documented. When you enter the school classes, it has classes 1, maybe 3 arms, right? All the 3 arms you are feeding them, right? How many children? There are maybe 200 children. All these 200 children is on a list. We know everybody, Hanatu, James, whatever. We know all of them. And everybody has a digital register. We don't just say name. Because of what you said, people will come and ask one day, what is the transparency? If you ask me, how much are we paying monthly? I will give you, it's approximately 13 to 15 billion naira every month feeding these children. Calculate 10 million children multiplied by 100 naira per day. This is 5 days per week, 20 days per month, 200 days per year. This is how you calculate. And every month we do this calculation. And if there are cooks that have died or children that are out of school and so on, all this positive feedback is fed to us. And therefore, I can be able to say, well, I don't need to say anything. I will direct you. I'll open my computer or direct you to a flashboard. You will see everything. If this has happened, there are people who come to my office and they claim that, wallahi, Dr. Bindir, no one is feeding anybody in my community. I say, which one is your community, sir? He will say, my community is so in Kogistan. So I go onto my computer. I said, well, in your community, there are 16 primary schools. And there's this primary school, that primary school, and he will open his eyes. You know all that? I said, no, I even know the name of the headmaster. I can call the headmaster now and ask the headmaster, when last did they feed? And we call the headmistress, and the headmistress will answer, actually, sir, yesterday they cooked, but today they are late a little bit, but they are sitting under the tree waiting for us to finish. And then he will just pack his things and leave my office.
Interesting.
Yes.
Over 10 billion naira monthly.
Of course, yes.
Over 120 billion naira yearly.
Yes.
That's a large sum of money. Dr.
Of course,
Bindir.
if poverty is your problem, it's nothing.
If poverty is the problem now, but then the same federal government said that an average of 100 million people must be lifted out of poverty each year.
In 10 years.
And starting in 2020.
Yes.
So after the social investment programs where 133 million people have actually plunged into poverty, 2 years later, Dr. Umar Bindir, you want to lift 100 million people out of poverty, but we have 133 million people in poverty. How do you correlate this?
In 10 years. I mean, look, lifting somebody out of poverty multisectorally is actually possible. Possible in the sense that if really we mean business and we say that we digitize our whole communities, all the communities, and I like the INEC structure of states, local governments, ward, and then polling unit. Polling unit is the last. You don't have elected leaders there, but it actually connotes a community. You know, in fact, 80 to 90% of polling units are in primary schools. You know, so you can actually see the data. So, what is the big deal if every local government does a little bit, every state put a little bit glazing on top, and the federal is intervening under UBEC for building schools. It is intervening under primary health care, building primary health care facilities. It is intervening under rural water supply from Ministry of Water Resources. And then NSRP is coming to intervene on people. You get what I mean? All this put together with very strong training, monitor and evaluation, and impact assessment, I can tell you what the president wants to tell Nigerians by saying lifting 100 million people out of poverty. When he said this, actually, it's not the multisectoral, it's the generic income poverty level. It was only 88 million people out of that. It is like totally eradicating absolute poverty in Nigeria. And I believe, though, I am one of the national experts when it comes to poverty eradication in this country. And I can tell you it's possible. If you close your eyes and ask yourself, is there any justification where every child in Nigeria should not go to school? I don't think many Nigerians would say some children should not go to school. I don't think that is possible. That is eradicatable. No. Nobody can justify that. Every single rural woman who is pregnant should be able to have access to a nurse to nurture their birth so that they are clean from maternal and children mortality. This is possible. So to me, Mr. President is very creative, is very innovative. He has assigned us. We believe that it can be achieved, and we're on track.
All right. So according to the socio-economic, that's SERAP, socio-economic and responsive program, they've actually said that they're going to sue. They're asking the federal government. Okay, according to SERAP, they said they're asking the federal government, that's President Muhammadu Buhari, to actually investigate the social investment programs. So are you open to investigations?
Every Nigerian who is operating within the public sector, I think, is disciplined enough to say, let's go anywhere. If you want to check our books or check our qualifications or check the modus operandi of what we do, our books are totally open, like a miles apart. If it is to do with data, we have it. If it is to do where we're operating, is have it. The only challenge is people, when they hear 385 billion naira allocated to NSRP, oh, it's a lot of money. Let me tell you a secret. On the streets of this country, 2 years ago, we have between 20 to 25 million young people with degrees and HNDs walking the streets of Nigeria unemployed. If you are to take only 1 million, right? Only 1 million out of this 20 to 30, and you put them on N-Power graduate, their stipend of 30,000 naira only will give you a 30 billion naira per month stipend. In 10 months, it's 300 billion. That allocation has finished with only 1 million. People don't understand this arithmetic. Let's say 300. Actually, investing 365 billion naira to shock treat poverty in this country is actually very meager. It's very small. Some countries are laughing at us. How do you do it with 365 billion? What is there? You are expected to deploy something like $5 to $10 billion. 365, even some 3 years ago, is only $1 billion. It's nothing. But they think because, they're sitting there, they see 10,000 naira or 20,000, this billion is.
Don't you think it has to do with the trust deficiency between the government and the governed?
Well, it's
been there over time.
Trust deficiency has always been there, but come if you have the expertise to investigate. If you want to take us to court, we will go there. Shabi, it is us that do this work. We know how much we are investing. We refuse to be demoralized because somebody is saying that you are doing this and that. All the institutions that are to check and so, but also check efficiency. Don't just come and check what are you doing. Also check. Go to the villages. Check the schools. Check whether we are feeding the children. Talk to the children whether they are eating food. Go to the rural places. Check the poor house and vulnerable house. Show us a rich house that we are giving 5,000. Go to the markets. Find the market money women. Ask them, are you getting anything? If they say no, come back and we'll show you data.
Awesome. Now let's divert a little bit and talk about politics. Now, I recall that you underscored the need for the country to have a national policy on school feeding program to ensure sustainability. So now that you're actually contesting to become a senator representing Adamawa, is this a policy that you would like to duplicate in Adamawa State and to its indigenes? Because according to the numbers that were reeled out by the NBS, Yobe State happens to be one of the states that are actually affected.
Well, actually, one of the most unfortunate things in our country is that we have failed to connect our knowledge institutions to our problems. This country has 240 or so universities. Not to talk of even polytechnics and colleges of full-fledged universities. And universities are supposed to be places where you do research, you teach good things, and you produce graduates that can solve your problems. The problems of water, the problems of mosquito, the problem of healthcare, and so on and so forth. Somehow, with this very vibrant sector, we have not connected. So some of us, when we are expressing our interest to go into, remember, I was secretary to the government of a state. I have tested working with politicians. I have seen their limits. Nobody can actually be able to work as below a chief executive and change so many things, especially when you know. And I advise all professionals, don't shy away from politics. Without your professionalism, these problems will not be solved. Get in there, struggle, be part of it. Like Erufai said, if the smart ones don't get involved, the non-smart ones will be involved, and you will never ever be able to solve your problems. So that is why some of us are saying, ultimately, we will become very, very active in this politics. We will rise even to the level of contesting to be governors so that the policies are evidence-based. The policies will now absorb the kind of experiences we have in solving poverty. If I were to become the governor of Adamawa State, I swear to God, Nigeria would have had an example.
Yeah, interesting. So now I ask again, are you bringing these policies that you're doing at the national level,
of course,
to trickle down to the state level?
This is my life. Since I was a director, even during Abacha time in FIP, I knew these things. In fact, it's one of the best programs, if you know what I mean, that very well structured. We worked very hard, fantastic permanent secretary and so on. We were the people in NAPEP. I saw the pluses and minuses in trying to forge programs, implement leadership, and so on and so forth. Most of these committees to do with poverty alleviation, we were there, right? So, and there is no way you can have this kind of skills and competencies and go anywhere and do something differently. That is why we're relevant. That is what we are still doing. Even at this age, I still stay until 10, 11 o'clock in the office. By 7, 8 o'clock, I'm in the office. This is that belief that this country can change.
All right.
I believe so.
All right, I will try to manage our time because our time is fast spent. So now, what are your propositions? What are the policies, the bills that you've actually lined up to sponsor when you become the senator in your state? And what are the programs that you've actually lined up in order to curb the burgeoning state of insecurity and out of school children, especially in Adamawa State?
Actually, that senatorial thing, I have left it long time ago. Reason being, there are too many complex things, and therefore it is for another day. But I am supporting I have a gubernatorial candidate that I'm supporting. If she wins, we will go there and support her with strong policies to solve poverty.
What are you done with politics?
Well, I'm indirectly part of the political system now, not directly. And all these contestants, they're all my friends and so on. We are hoping that we can form a synergized team to be able to put all these things as part of the policies to actually move not just our state, but the country. I work with many, many governors. I'm very close to the vice presidential candidate of the APC, His Excellency Senator Kashim. And these are things that we are hoping that if they actually scale through, we can help. We were part of the Buhari movement right at the beginning. That's why I'm working with my minister, Sadia Umar Farouk. The same things we're every day injecting into what we work. So to us, for some of us, there is no stopping when it comes to trying to make sure that Nigeria changes for the better.
So are we going to see your name or your picture sometime soon?
God willing. I mean, you're seeing my videos now. Certainly picture is a junior to video. So
I mean, with regards to politics,
when it settles down and all the elections are over, we will participate. But certainly politics, we're in it and there's no giving up.
Now, what are we've actually seen, I wanted to ask you how close you are to your constituencies, especially the youth of your constituency, whom some time ago we gathered that they were agitated and then they felt shortchanged with regards to the NSIP program in Adamawa State. What is the situation at the moment?
No. It's all stable. It's all, most of these programs get a little bit over politicized. The center here is an all progressive party government. In my state, it's a PDP government. And therefore, when you are doing good things, sometimes it may not be absorbed wholeheartedly. Sometimes you get full support. So there are issues, but the issues, I think we have resolved it. I have the governor in my state is a very good friend and a junior brother to me. And I try to explain the concepts of these things, driving this to the poor and vulnerable. He's totally aligned to it. The other side, the politicians who are trying to get to practice or to participate, we explain this very, very clearly. But the bottom line is the choices of beneficiaries, the training and the feeding and the transfer of cash to people is based on the people who require it. And we try our best to make sure that we maintain that standard at every level, not just in Adamawa State, but all over Nigeria. Difficult because some people will come and tell you, oh, this area did not get, that area did not get. They bring in the politics into it. But we try to explain the concepts of the program, and this thing, not everybody can actually benefit at the same time. You have to gradually move in, generate momentum, and then you'll find that if one gets a loan today, it's quite possible that the person who gets the loan will hire another person to come and actually help. That means the second person is also getting part of the first one.
So there's the value chain.
Exactly. So it is a linkage thing, and most people don't understand this. So we have to spend time to explain to people that this is how it works. So don't always be on a posture that I must get it now and it must come to me directly. There are people who, they don't see people benefiting in their area. They want the people who benefit to come through them. I said, it doesn't have to happen. Once you see your people benefiting it, consider that it has come through you. Difficult, but we succeed in most of the cases by explaining to people to understand.
Dr. Umar Bindir, it's actually been a wonderful time having this talk with you. Thank you so much for always availing us your time and attention to always talk to us on the NSIP.
Thank you very much. I just advise young people that look at all these opportunities as opportunities. Our country is a great country. Our leaders are great leaders. Try to empower yourself. Don't be in a cycle whereby your child too will be out of school. You will not have skill to excel and so on. Do your best. Be a Nigerian, and I'm sure put together we can push our country and make our leaders proud. Thank you.
Push our country and make our leaders proud. What a way to actually end this program. So it's actually been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have been chatting with Dr. Umar Buba Bindir. He is the National Coordinator at the National Social Investment Program that is organized by the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Investment Programs. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Keep watching The Conversation because you never know who my next guest will be and what my next topic will be all about. So I come your way again from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.